closest and most likely threat is a mere 93 million miles away. And at any moment, unprovoked and without warning, it could go on the attack.
Solar flares are these massive explosions of energy. It's like tens of millions of hydrogen bombs being detonated all at once.
But as powerful as these bursts of radiation are, they're sometimes only the beginning of a solar temper tantrum.
On top of that, you can also have material that's flung away from the sun, and we call this a coronal mass ejection. Billions and billions of tons of hot gas magnetic field that is pushed away from the sun, and it travels at speeds of 1 million or so miles per hour.
Coronal mass ejection is almost like popping a champagne bottle. There's an intense initial release of energy, popping of the cork, and we're basically looking down the barrel of this cork shot.
As a CME rockets toward Earth, it drives a barrage of high-energy particles in front of it.
The environment around the sun is filled with the solar wind, these particles of the sun's atmosphere that are streaming away. The CME plows into this material and creates a shock wave. And that shock then accelerates the particles that are in front of the CME.
And if it's flying in our direction, it means real trouble for the planet Earth.
If the sun fires one at us in 2012, you won't have much time to prepare, even if you see it coming. The bulk of the CME will reach us in just a few days.
But those particles that are accelerated by the CME are accelerated to close to the speed of light. These particles can take somewhere on the order of tens of minutes to hours.
When it reaches Earth, the shockwave of energized particles will slam into satellites in orbit, shorting out their electronics.
If we were staring down the barrel of an unexpectedly large CME, it could take out a lot of our satellite network.
With several thousand planes flying above the U.S. at any given time, the consequences could be much worse than just losing your satellite television.
Planes that were looking to come in for a landing might suddenly find that their GPS units had stopped working. At the wrong time, that could cost people their lives.
But losing the satellite network could just be the beginning of our really bad day. Once the shockwave has passed, the bulk of the CME will crash into the Earth's magnetic field.
The Earth has a protective magnetic field that shields us from these CMEs. It's, you know, the shields are up, Scotty.
This natural barrier normally prevents charged particles from reaching the surface by deflecting them around the Earth. But if the CME is big enough, our planetary protection could come at a high cost.
The geomagnetic storm basically is a temporary disruption of the Earth's magnetic field called the magnetosphere. When charged particles from solar storms hit the Earth's magnetosphere, they can become trapped in the field.
We see the intense clash between these charged particles and the magnetic field as the aurora, or northern lights. But if you see nature's light show in your neighborhood, it could be a warning sign of imminent catastrophe.
Having a huge influx of charged particles hit the magnetosphere causes the magnetic fields to move, and that in turn will cause electric currents on the ground.
These currents can cause power fluctuations, cause transformers to be shorted out, and this would then bring down the power grid and cause blackouts.
But this won't be just another minor, temporary power outage.
Today, the power grids around the country and around the world are much more interconnected than they used to be.
If we're hit by a solar blast powerful enough, cascading failures in power systems could fry the electric grid the world over. Rolling blackouts could sweep over entire continents.
People sometimes say, well, I've survived blackouts before, I could do it again, but this would be different.
According to a recent report issued by the National Academy of Sciences, full recovery could take 4 to 10 years. If entire countries fall victim to an unrecoverable blackout, the consequences could be devastating.
If you had a solar storm that struck in the dead of winter, people could suddenly find themselves freezing to death.
We're going to start losing food. I mean, refrigerators work on electricity, freezers work on electricity. Eventually that food is going to run out, and there's only so many baked beans in the world.
Suddenly people wouldn't have water for drinking or for agriculture or for sewage.
Modern civilization would be hurled back into a literal dark age. The result could be anarchy.
It's most likely that in many places we would see martial law break out.
We could be looking at a breakdown of society as we know it.
With each passing year, we become more vulnerable to this kind of mishap because the electrical power grid is more and more burdened with greater and greater loads of electricity. So we are cruising for a bruising. We really, really are.
Every 11 years, the sun reaches a maximum level of activity when it can typically fire off 2 or 3 CMEs every single day. And at the end of 2012, it's expected to be getting itself ready to enter the next solar maximum.
And basically the sun gets very, very angry at the peak of these solar cycles. And as you reach solar maximum, it becomes a very bad time to be in space.
We don't really know what this next solar maximum will be like. It might throw us some surprises.
If the sun does have some surprises in store for 2012, the consequences could be far more destructive than just turning off our technology. So, while you're fumbling in the dark for your candles, wondering what just happened, brace yourself. It only gets worse from here.